Hmm? Ah! Oh.
I'm gonna kill both you Slayers for this! You hear me?
I hear you, you redneck moron. You got a dress that goes with that hat? Rip out my innards, play with my eyeballs, boil my brain and eat it for brunch? Listen up, needle brain. Buffy and I have taken out 4 of your cronies, not to mention your girlfriend.
Wife!
Whatever. The point is, I haven't even broken a sweat. See, in the end, Buffy's just the runner-up. I'm the queen. You get me mad? What do you think I'm gonna do to you?
Later.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Still Slaying, a Buffyverse podcast. I'm Penny.
And I'm not Kara. I'm Mark. Or you could call me Spike if you want. This episode, we're going to be discussing Season 3, Episode 5, titled Homecoming. Directed by David Greenwalt and written by Jane Espenson, David Greenwalt, and JW. Original air date, November 3rd, 1998.
And listeners, Kara wasn't able to join us today, but I am delighted to have our returning guest host, Mark, from the Panels to Pixels podcast, Adrenaline Cinema podcast, and recently he was part of the crossover coverage of Monarch Legacy of Monsters on Podcastica and Willhelm. Welcome back to the podcast, Mark.
Yeah, thanks for having me back on. This is fun. An episode that I always enjoy, and I look forward to discussing.
Yeah, when I sent out a message to people who had guested for season 2 and said, you know, like, what episodes in season 3 are you interested in? You were the first responder, and you were like, Homecoming. And I was like, okay, I definitely want Mark on for Homecoming because he's so enthusiastic about it. That's fantastic. It's never been one of my favorite episodes, but rewatching it this time, I got a lot more out of it than I have in the past.
Yeah, it's that in-between episode after Buffy's return in season 3.
Yeah.
So a lot of people are, it's like, oh, this is just a hump. And on top of that, we got introduced to a new Slayer, and we don't know where she fits in. And then on top of that, I guess they needed to move the story points along with characters like Willow and Xander, Cordy, and Oz. Well, Oz was the introduction at this point, but you know, as more of a regular. But yeah, they. I think this is like one of those added in. But to me, there's a hidden love for it. Not, I loved it when it came out, but I loved it for what happened years later. That a movie was spawned out of it by JW.
Yeah, I'm hoping you're going to talk about that when we get into the main discussion, because that's pretty interesting. All right, let's center ourselves back in 1998.
All right. Apparently, a lot's happened in 1998, November that week. The number one song in the U.S., "The First Night" by Monica. Number one song in the UK, "Believe" by Cher. Do you believe in love? U.S. box office. 1 would be The Waterboy. 2, the Rugrats movie. 3, A Bug's Life. And 4, Enemy of the State. And apparently Shakespeare in Love premieres that week too.
Big movie week.
Yeah.
And also going on at this time around November 3rd, 1998, there was a previously undiscovered segment of the Great Wall of China that is about 4,500 miles long. Or no, maybe the entire Great Wall is 4,500 miles long. They discovered a 15 0.5-mile segment of the Great Wall of China that was previously undiscovered. That's just blows my mind that after all this time that there was still a hidden part. Sadly, American cartoonist Bob Kane, who created with Bill Finger the comic book characters Batman and Robin, died in Los Angeles. Jesse Ventura, former professional wrestler, is elected governor of Minnesota. And we've talked about this on the podcast before. It was a very optimistic time in our country. And the cover of Life magazine for November was a smiling picture of Christopher Reeve post his spinal accident. And the headline says, Thanksgiving, 100 Best Things About America Now. And what is Christopher Reeve thankful for? Just like such an upbeat time when people were so happy. And then I went to the Wall Street Journal for that day, and just this is a couple of the headlines. Brazilian stocks soar after holiday. Argentine stocks follow Brazilian higher. Group sees rebound in Japan PC market. Asian stocks post substantial gains. I mean, the late 90s were this time of growth and positivity and optimism all over the world, but especially in the US. The dot-com boom was just starting, and everybody thought they were going to be millionaires, and it was just a different time from how we feel now.
Oh yeah, well, it's funny too. I think of it almost as a re-envisioning or look again like the '80s, because in the '80s everybody thought they were going to make a lot of money, and
Yeah.
now this is towards the end of the '90s, so there's that capitalistic look of we can make a lot of money, we could spend a lot of money, and years later it fell apart.
Yeah. It sure did fall apart.
And again it fell apart, and again it fell apart. Every decade.
November 3rd, 1998 was a good time. And
Yeah.
this episode is bright and cheerful in a lot of ways. It's more lighthearted and fun than a lot of Buffy episodes. We're not dealing with, intimate partner violence like we did last week.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a lighter romp in
It's
the
a
Buffy
little
universe.
lighthearted, but there's a little bit more serious context within it too, because we see an oopsie in there between two friends who've known each other since they were little kids. Within their relationship, we see Buffy reverting back to her ways before she became a Slayer in competition form, because she feels invisible and alienated by her friends. That is a big discussion point. Plus, she's hiding the fact that Angel's alive.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things that are fluid within it, within the episode that moves the story forward, which I really do enjoy, because at this point, season 3 became the highest rated or looked at season, because we got Faith and everybody was looking forward to it. Eliza Dushku basically shot into the heavens with popularity at that point,
Yeah.
and increased the popularity of Buffy the Vampire Slayer for TV. So it got more people active and watching, which I really did enjoy. But I was watching the show from day one, every week by week, for episode by episode, and having fun with that. Now more people are getting involved and loving it. But the story progressed to that point, and you could see the progression within the Scooby Gang. Giles coming a little bit more out of himself. We see a little bit more of Giles. We get to know him more as not just Rupert Giles, the Watcher, but let alone Ripper as well at certain points within the season. So to me, I really enjoyed this episode for the undertones for the characters and where they're going, because
there's a
this
lot of
actually
growth.
does this also sets up something that happens later on within the season that kind of screws up the whole Scooby Gang just a little bit.
Yeah. And if any of our listeners don't know what Mark is alluding to, that's gonna come up in about 3 episodes.
Yes.
And we're gonna have
Not
a great
spoiling
time
it.
talking about that.
Yeah, I'm not spoiling anything, but if you do watch ahead, do so. But little key point that I would like to give, I mentioned it too when I first was on here for season 2, and it was in the very beginning of season 2, I believe. I had mentioned how I have this on Apple TV. I had bought the the series literally on Apple TV for my
Mhm.
TV shows. They were using a DVD transfer at the time, and there was a glitch in one, so they fixed that glitch. But if you look at the progression of season 1 all the way up to season 3, there's a difference in color scheming, widescreen moments. So there's a transition too. So season 1's still dark when you look at it, when you see the transition from 4:3 aspect ratio all the way to 16:9, because we all have these widescreen flat panels
Yeah.
TVs, and we want it to be filled out. By this time, the show is filled out like on your screen. So
Yeah, so it looks different. It looks to a modern eye, it looks more professional, right? The first
yeah,
season has a little bit of that, like, did they film this at home quality, and it's starting to look more sleek. The costuming is better, like the quality and fit of everybody's clothes are better.
yes.
I always notice that it's like season 3 is when you can tell that Sarah Michelle Gellar was like, I want Buffy to have nicer clothes.
Well, that's because she wants to keep them too.
Yeah. And
She might have,
and
yeah, she could have pulled the Shannon Doherty thing that she did on Mallrats, where it's like, do I get to keep the clothes?
yeah, why not, man? The clothes
They're
are
meant for her.
beautiful and they're made to fit her, so why shouldn't
Yeah,
she get to keep them? Well, let's get into it.
sure.
Where do you wanna start?
Well, I just love how it's sort of dated. I don't know if you noticed it, but with the tube TVs. Now,
Yeah.
it is 1998, so the surveillance that we do get is literally with tube TVs, cameras. The way they're getting the internet is still through dial-up, but better yet, early cell phone technology to get through that. So you hear that whirring, ta-ting, ta-ting through a
Oh,
cell
the
phone.
modem sound.
The actual, BPS modems that we had back in the day, 14.4 and 28.8. But we get that. But the fact that they used the tube TV with like just to relay the information. Now, obviously, it's not a webcam because back then they didn't really have too many webcams, and the resolution would have been terrible. But they were trying to make it look futuristic for its time. I thought that was pretty cool. I thought at the time when it came out, I'm like, oh wow. Oh wait, they're using well, not everybody has a cell phone. It's 1998.
Yeah.
Back then, they were just becoming a little bit more common and popular for everybody to use. I didn't get one until 2000.
I think I got one in '99. Yeah.
Yeah, but I just love how it's still a bit dated for its time, but it's still fun to watch.
Yeah,
I
the
like that.
technology of the German twin hunter guys and their boss, who we didn't get enough backstory on him. I really wanna know what that guy's deal is. Uh, but that was
Yeah, the
all, like,
manager.
science fiction, and it's interesting that one of the top movies at the time was Enemy of the State, because
Mhm.
Enemy of the State also had, science fiction surveillance equipment as a big part of the story, and it was, a warning about what can happen if we become a surveillance state. And sorry, my politics are going to show through again, but 3 years later, after the 9/11 attacks, we passed the Patriot Act, and this country did become a surveillance state, and we should have listened more closely to Enemy of the State,
Yeah, yeah, it
which,
was
by the way, is a
foreshadowing.
perfect screenplay. Perfect
Yeah,
screenplay.
it was foreshadowing to what happened in our future. I would
Exactly.
say, yeah, yeah, and it is and it stress. This actual episode does stress a lot about surveillance.
Yeah.
Not just from Mr. Trick, the man in the chair. I'm forgetting the actor's name. He's a very popular actor back in the day. He's an older gentleman. Didn't really get a backstory on him and why he was in a wheelchair, because it was a man in a chair, but it was more of a wheelchair from my understanding or remembrance in the
Yeah.
episode. But not only do they talk about surveillance, and they have surveillance going on Buffy, but they also you have the mayor, and they talk
Yeah.
about the two German assassins. and his assistant that's there. We get this. I don't know. Was this the first time we got to see the mayor? I haven't.
Yeah.
I get everything mixed up. I
He's
thought
been
so because
mentioned
of
before, but this is his first appearance.
yeah, and then we get the uh we literally get him talking we get more insight about him. There's something devious about him. And
Yeah.
strange too, for the fact of his OCD. He's like, "Oh, did you wash your hands?" He's smelling the paper that's there as the picture of the assassin twins, the German guys, and he tells the assistant, he goes, "Did you wash your hands? You know, you get some dirt under your nails, you get some germs, and then mayonnaise just creeps up in there." It's just like the way he's talking to him, and he's very obsessive, and he's got hand sanitizer and everything, and he's washing, cleaning his hands. So it's like there's something quirky about this. So there, it's like it's bad enough. Every principle that we've had is terrible.
Yeah.
Well, not the first one. The first one, Flutie got just killed. I think,
Didn't he
if I
get
remember
eaten by
correctly.
the hyena people?
I think so. And then we got what's his name? Armin Shimmerman's character.
Snyder. Oh God.
Snyder,
He's the
which
best.
he
You love to hate him so much.
Armin is so perfect at playing a villainous or nasty kind of role, and
Yeah.
that's what I do appreciate about him. His characterizations but he's kind of pigeonholed in that particular character structure for whatever character he plays in a movie or a show. But he knows how to do it. He makes it work.
He really
But
does.
we get the introduction to the mayor, which is interesting. It was a slow pass. We kind of the reason why I thought of it, I was thinking to myself as I'm watching this again, and mind you, everybody, I probably watched the series over and over for the past 2 or 3 months because I have it on Apple TV, my Apple TV, and I'll just put it on in the background. So it's hard to really keep in continuity unless I'm doing a podcast, or like with Penny, she's doing this and she's doing it in continuity. So it's easier for her because she can go episode to episode and concentrate. So to me, everything gets mixed and mangled. So I don't want to say I'm being more conscious
Thank
about
you.
what I say. So I don't want to spoil anything, and we'll go into spoilers later. But the way they are able to creep up on him and then do his introduction, how the actual camera pans to him and slowly creeps up on him. Now, mind you, I'm very familiar with the actor that plays the mayor because he was in a comedy show years before, and he played pretty much a character that was always fearful, awkward. But this character that he's playing and presenting to us is completely different. Very
Yeah, he
confident.
has a pretty impressive IMDb page,
Yeah.
including being in the recent smash success of Oppenheimer. Coincidentally, so I've been rewatching Charmed lately, and I just so happened to watch the episode last night that he guests in as an empath who, helps the Charmed sisters. And I was like, "Oh my god, the mayor!" But he's a good guy. Like
Yeah.
it was kind of fun. But he's been a character actor in tons of television series, especially a bunch on the WB. He was in Supernatural. He was in Once Upon a Time. He was in Bones. He was in Medium. He was on Star Trek Enterprise. He was on Monk. He's done so many shows. Oh yeah, West Wing,
Yeah.
Roswell. It just goes on and on and on. Malcolm in the Middle. I could just keep, listing all these shows that you've heard of. And
Yeah.
he's one of those actors that loses himself in the character, and sometimes
Mhm.
you don't realize it's the same person you saw in some other role because they're such different characters that he plays.
Yeah, the character I'm thinking of that he was kind of awkward and strange and kind of nervous all the time was the show Dear John,
Oh yeah.
and that's the what I'm thinking of because it was a long standing. I watched that show back in 1988 to 1991. when it was on. So I followed that show. That's why he always came into my mind. Same thing, like, like you said, he was like in Star Trek, and he became like a character actor. People that we do see, and we always see their face, and you always remember them, but they make such a pivotal impact on you when they do show up in a show and going, oh, I love this actor. So I love that we get him. And I think with this one, how many episodes did he?
He did
Says here
14
on
episodes
14.
total.
Yeah.
That he shows up in some like flashbacks, but
Yes.
he's mostly season 3.
Yes.
Primarily season 3.
That's his pivotal season, and we'll see, and you guys will be discussing more of him as the season goes by.
Yeah, he becomes a more and more important character.
Very
And
much.
yeah, he's delightful. The way they dress him, I remember in the DVD extras, the conversation about costuming for him, and that the goal was to have him look like a cross between like your uncle and a used car salesman. And they put him in all these sort of earth tones and warm, like sort of fuddy-duddy suits that just don't look super stylish. So he's meant to be visibly unthreatening. And I think they've succeeded in that. He definitely has that look of like, that's just a middle management dude, like whatever. So you overlook and underestimate him.
Yeah.
Which is, I don't know, underestimating people based on their looks is one of the major themes of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. It happens to a lot of characters on the show, like Buffy herself, right? She's this teeny tiny girl, and people are always like, you're just a girl. And then, we all know she's a superhero. And as a woman who's been underestimated by men in the past, I get a lot of satisfaction out of it every time Buffy's like, yeah, okay, I'm just a girl, and then kicks a bunch of butt because, I've wanted to do that before and have in a non-slaying capacity, in a lawyer capacity.
You
Lawyer and
kicked their butt
slayer, similar
verbally.
words. Yeah.
You kicked their butts verbally.
I sure do.
There you go.
I negotiate the hell out of those contracts. All right. So yeah, the mayor, and I've forgotten the name of his aide who we also meet.
Yeah, I forgot his character's name too.
He is Deputy Mayor, here it is, Alan Finch, played by Jack Plotnick. He
Okay.
is delightful. He is so like nervous and skittish and deprecating, and I find him really delightful in his awkwardness. It seems really realistic to me that somebody who thought he was getting a good job working for the mayor, and then he starts to get dragged into the mayor's underhanded stuff that he's doing, which we start to see a little bit of because the mayor brings Mr. Trick in, we think at first, to like get him to stop doing what he's doing, but instead it's because he wants Mr. Trick to work for him. And I'm like, oh, his poor assistant is like, now we have vampires on the staff. Like, oh, it's hard to be Finch.
Let's talk about picture day at school.
Yeah. So how
interesting that was that.
I loved the montage of everybody getting their school pictures, right? Cordelia with a perfect photo, right? She knows how to smile and pose for a camera. Xander just being Xander, and it works fine. And then Willow, how she's like all happy and smiley. And then at the last second before they take the picture, she slouches and makes like this unsure face. And I'm like, yeah, that's Willow.
Well, she wasn't sure if they were focusing in on her. So she was like, did you get that?
Yeah.
Oh, and then they click it away. It's just like, oh, that's the worst picture ever. You're just not ready. And then, of course,
Oz gets in front of the camera, makes one expression, doesn't change.
So stoic. And it's just like, as he's like already frozen in time anyway. That's what I love about Seth Green.
Classic Oz moment. And then Buffy missing picture day is, it's so sad. It is so sad when she finds out that she missed picture day. She's in the middle of this spiral, right? Like, Scott
Yes.
broke up with her, and I can't really blame him. She is completely distracted and not into him, right? Like she's not
Yeah.
she's she's not being a good girlfriend. I don't blame Scott. Also, we know that relationship was never going to succeed. But,
No.
and then she's like, I'm invisible. And can you see me? Am I here? Oz is like big as life. And then, I think it's Xander who tells her she missed picture day. And the look
Yeah.
on her face is like, I can't get anything right. And then Cordelia is just in the wrong place at the wrong time to
Well,
draw Buffy's
yeah.
ire about this entire thing, right? Cordelia has the exact opposite relationship with high school than Buffy does, right? Everyone knows who she is. Everyone pays attention to her. She will probably
Yes.
be in half of the yearbook when it comes out, right? She's a cheerleader and she's popular and she's beautiful and her hair always looks perfect. And I don't think Buffy really was really angry at Cordelia. It was just Cordelia was the person who was the final straw in a chain of events, and Buffy was like, and Cordelia was mean about it, right?
Oh yeah. She realized she was being the scapegoat for Buffy's anger for the situation, because it was Xander said, "Well, didn't Cordelia tell you?" And then we see that at that moment too, when Cordy was going to go in to tell her, she was already working and training with Faith and Giles, as she normally is, and Buffy was already in the process of, venting out frustrations due to
Yeah.
Scott, because she literally was like telling moments before to Angel, like, I got a guy, he's
Oh, yeah.
reliable, blah blah blah,
And then
and
smash cut to Scott, and
because
he's
this
like,
isn't
I don't
working
think we
out.
should see each other anymore.
Oh wow. And it's just like her life, and then of course, you said it before, her favorite teacher and her favorite class didn't even know who she was, and
Oh,
she
that
goes,
was
but
so sad.
and it's so sad. And it's literally how, due to the fact that from the previous season, at the end of that season she disappeared, she left, and then this season she comes back, but she's still invisible to her friends and to everybody else. Then you got Cordy getting in her face and retaliating after Buffy is like, "This is your fault. Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you give me this information?" And then she basically was like, "All right, I'm going to hit it where it hurts you, Cordy. I'm going to go for homecoming queen." Now we see, because if you look at it in respect, you already saw a flashback of Buffy, I think, before she became a Slayer, I
Yeah,
think at this
at
point.
her old high school where she
At her
was
old
the
high
queen
school,
bee.
she was literally what Cordy was. So now we see Buffy becoming what Buffy used to be and gonna try to make it her way. And I just love the montage of them vying for homecoming queen and getting everybody's attention, but she still loses out in the end for her own friends, her gang, because she has a whole board, everything projected of what she wants done, who's going to do what task. Willow, you're going to do a database on everything about Cordelia's people and how I stand in contention with her. Uh, Xander, you're going to get these posters made up. Oz, you're going to help out. And it's like, and then Cordy just walks in and she
And
goes, "Oh,
just
Willow,
takes them
how's
all.
that
Yeah.
database going?" I have everything going. It's just like, sorry, to Buffy. And you can see the uncomfortableness in Willow at that point. And
Yeah.
then Xander goes, she's my girlfriend, and I had to get her to and then I just love what Oz has to say too. I have it written here, which is so funny. It's He goes, "Oh, I have to go with the nation," or whatever it
Yeah.
was.
As Willow goes, so goes my nation.
Yep. Yeah. Yes. That's it.
Yeah.
I had it written down. I just didn't know where it was. But it's hilarious though. It's like, and then everybody leaves, and then she realizes, oh crap, I'm alone in this, and
Yeah.
it sucks for Buffy. So, but we do see the montage of Cordelia with her cookies, and then Buffy with her, cupcakes, and then Cordy just like going up to the same people, throwing the cupcakes away, and handing the people the cookie to get their votes.
I know. Oh, it's so painful. And then she gives Buffy that look like, and you can't help but feel for Buffy. She's so sad, and she
Yeah,
has no allies at this point.
yeah,
And
she
she
feels
is
alone.
still being a real trooper, right? She's still like projecting confidence and friendliness, and
Mm.
flirting where she needs to flirt, and threatening where she needs to threaten. And she gets Willow to show her Cordelia's database by reminding her how many times she saved her life, which is an incredibly valid point. Like, you
Yeah,
need some loyalty if you're gonna expect me to keep saving your life. It's
yeah,
it's pretty funny. I love that montage. I also love that it's cut between the montage of the campaigning with the assassins like
training.
prepping and wrestling and training. It's just like everybody's getting ready for homecoming. It's all gonna come to this one night. Is just really, it's so fun.
Yep,
I want to talk about
Jonathan.
Mr. Trick some more.
Okay.
I love Mr. Trick so much. I think
Mhm.
he's such a fantastic addition to this universe, because all of the demons and vampires all seem to be lost in time and from the past. None of them use technology.
Mhm.
They barely use telephones, right? They're all still like living in this world where everything is analog and antique, right? Like Angel barely even knows what a telephone is. But Mr. Trick is this modern day vampire, and he's like monetizing it. So
Mhm.
he would really fit in well in 2024, right? When everybody's being pushed to monetize every hobby and have side hustles and side gigs and all this
Yes.
stuff. He would be right at home in 2024. He would probably have a TikTok channel and a YouTube channel, and he would use that YouTube channel to get people to like come to him so he could eat them. Like he would probably be making bank. I bet he would have a pretty healthy investment account. He probably would do day trading in the early 2000s. Remember when that was like a really big thing? Like
Well,
everybody was
yeah, he
day
could easily
trading.
do day trading because he'd be stuck inside all the time because he's supposed to be sleeping. He's a vampire.
Exactly. You can't go outside during the day. So you day trade in the daytime, and then you go out at night for your hunting and your fun. And when he meets the mayor and the mayor says something like, that's quite a suit, or that's a what does he say? Something about the suit, and Trick is like, well, I believe clothes make the man. And that suit is amazing. It's like red
Oh, yeah.
velvet with like an orange tie.
He
I
he
loved
dress
it.
he dresses for success, as I like to say, and he is, like you said, he is the modern vampire in comparison to you see Mr. Doom and Gloom himself, Angel, in his place of residence where he's stuck. But I wouldn't put it past Mr. Trick to you know utilize and not to really put a bit of fear of a fellow podcaster of us who likes to DoorDash, but he could easily use DoorDash and Uber Eats to his own benefit. So
Yeah. Although
he
he'd
just
get a low rating real fast. Like the
well,
driver never came back.
well, yeah, they never checked back in.
During that montage, the music is a song called Fire Escape by Fastball. And the lyrics are interesting because I don't know whose side I'm on. I don't know my right from wrong. I don't know where I'm going to. I don't know about you. I'll be the rain falling on your fire escape, and I may not be the man you want me to. I can be myself. How about you? So it really speaks to how Buffy's friends are torn between Buffy and Cordelia. And it also speaks to Buffy, who is like trying to keep Angel at arm's length because she knows what's going to be good for her, but also she's drawn to him and she can't help herself. He's all she's thinking about, even when she's with Scott, she's thinking about Angel, and we can tell because she ditches Scott at that bar at the Bronze and goes to Angel immediately with his blood. And it's just a really great song for that moment. Ironically, also on the Charmed episode I was watching last night, Fastball was the band playing at the in-episode club, P3.
Huh.
And I was like, oh, another connection to this episode of Buffy. That's hilarious.
It's because it was popular at that time, too. Fastball at that point was being hugely successful with their...
And the WB was smart because they figured out how to have their TV shows be showcases for the bands that they were promoting under their music label. So
correct.
The Bronze and P3 were just this perfect way for them to drop in the bands that they wanted to promote into these popular TV shows with the perfect demographic, right?
Yeah, they're incorporating the pop culture into the show to promote itself so they can bank on it, which is perfect. It's very much like the MTV market point of doing things. So you're being inclusivity with what you're doing within the show to everything that's going out there in the world, and then in the process promoting the bands and and having them spotlight too on the show as well.
Sometimes you can tell that they use the band performances to make the timing work. Like sometimes the performances are a little longer, sometimes a little shorter, because that's an elastic thing that they can do when they're editing to make the rest of the show time out right. It's a smart move all around from a production standpoint, and I always like it when I can see like, oh, I know what they're doing. I see what that. And also as an intellectual property lawyer, I'm like, of course you put your own band's music in there, WB, because then you save money. It's the exact definition of synergy, right? It's like the music and TV divisions are working together.
Yeah. Gross marketing platforming.
The school pictures montage, I thought at first they copied that from Freaks and Geeks, but I checked. Freaks and Geeks came out in 99. So this Buffy montage was first. And then Freaks and Geeks used a very similar montage for their opening credits quite effectively.
So you could state that Freaks and Geeks stole this from Buffy.
Maybe.
Possibly.
Maybe it was done somewhere else before this, but I couldn't remember that. But I love Freaks and Geeks. That's another really fantastic show about high school. If you have not watched it, people in the universe, you should. It's really good. It's only one season, and it's like a perfect season of television.
And it's a who's who of that's actors that are out there now today.
Yeah. So many huge stars got their jump from Freaks and Geeks.
Oh yeah. Seth Rogen, Dave Franco, James Franco, not Dave.
Jason Segel, Linda Cardellini, Busy Phillips.
Yeah. It's really cool. Actually, there's a character from Buffy, well, a future season character from Buffy that's in Freaks and Geeks too, and plays a friend. And we'll talk about that later off camera.
Okay. I'm trying to place it, and I'm sure I will be able to if I stop.
Once I say,
so hard to think about it.
Yeah. The best part too, just to add just a little bit to that montage with Buffy and Cordy vying for their votes for Homecoming Queen. I love that we got Jonathan, and now this is like the second time we see Jonathan, I think, and he actually has this real speaking role at this point because he states to Buffy, he goes, "Well, Cordy gave me $6. I can buy a ton of cupcakes with that."
My immediate thought was, not in 2024. $6 is maybe one fancy cupcake in 2024.
If you're lucky.
Yeah.
And then I loved Cordy trying to get with the nerds too, the nerd group. And she goes, I've been using the Vulcan nerve pinch forever. And she does it wrong.
Yeah. But they're all like, "Ooh, a pretty girl's talking to us." So
yeah, that's all it is.
That's all it is. Because remember, in the 90s, nerds were just starting to be cool. They weren't cool yet.
Yes.
It was just starting to be cool to call yourself a nerd and to like science fiction and like fantasy and horror genre stuff. At that point, nerd was still an insult.
Yes.
And the geeks had not yet inherited the earth with all the .com and money and power that and Gen X entering the production sphere and creating all kinds of nostalgic content that we love.
Oh yeah.
I also was thinking about when the gritty superhero aesthetic became popular, because Buffy is campy and colorful and bright and funny. And to today's eye, it looks a little odd, but the Batman and Robin movie, largely considered to be the worst of all Batman movies ever, came out in 1997. And that was the one with like fluorescent lit gangs and the nipples on the bat suit. It was cartoonish and ridiculous. So Buffy, by comparison to that, was sophisticated and smooth. The gritty thing happened with Christopher Nolan and Batman Begins, which was 2005. When did Alan Moore release the Watchmen comic?
Alan Moore, Watchmen came out in the 80s, like 86.
Yeah. And then it wasn't adapted to a movie until the 2000s.
To 2010s, around that time period.
And Frank Miller's Dark Knight comic was also
around that same time. That was an innovative years within comics during that time, because I still have my copies of Watchmen and Frank Miller's Dark Knight, and those are two of one of the greatest runs that were out there during their time, and they're still mostly sought out. People, they're collectors, everything, but they were gritty in the sense of how the superheroes at that time were portrayed. So it kind of changed the focus of how comics were written and superheroes were written at that time. And eventually, during that time too, I think by the 90s, you got, The Crow, you had Sandman. There was a whole change in how heroes and comics were written at that time, and pop culture comics too, by the way.
Yeah, a move to the darkness and to the grittiness.
And at this time in 1998, you're talking about how Buffy was different too, because think about it, Blade came out in 1998 as well. So Blade, you had the other version of Buffy, but in a male format, but more dark and gritty. Mm-hmm. There was some comedic content in there as well, but it also introduced more of the comic book movies that were out there. We were stuck with the DC stuff for a long time. We didn't have anything Marvel except for Howard the Duck in 1986. And then we got Blade, finally. And that was a character that was not seen. But, to move into more vampire culture, showing that, in 98, Buffy was popular. Blade comes out. He's a, vampire, half-breed. And it kind of launched that, and people are all getting into the vampire stuff. I still think Buffy and and Blade and all that kind of introduced everybody, and that's how HBO was able to go into, with True Blood.
Yeah, without Buffy, there wouldn't have been True Blood, Vampire Diaries, or Twilight.
Ugh. Twilight.
We talked about this on a different podcast the other day, because I'm covering Echo on Podcastica's Marvel TV cast, and there are just a who's who of Indigenous actors in Echo, and a lot of them were also in the Twilight movies. And I admitted that even though those movies are objectively bad, I love them.
Everybody has their I call them guilty pleasures, because everybody else doesn't like them, but you love them.
Yeah, and I refuse to feel guilty about it. You don't
have to be. You be proud of what you like. I'm just saying I don't like them.
Yeah,
I'm guilty of saying I don't like them at times, but when they're on, I'll throw it on. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, okay, whatever, I'll leave it on. There's a little bit of me that wants to see, because, it's like, oh, wasn't this actress in this? Hold on, I gotta see if she's in this
cast
clip.
is amazing.
Yeah.
The cast is amazing, and the music of the Twilight movies is amazing, and the photography is beautiful. I love the setting of the Pacific Northwest. I can never get tired of that. I wish I lived in a place that was rainy all the time like that. I love rain. Anyway, that's a tangent. This is
Yes,
not a
it is.
Twilight podcast.
Correct.
Let's get into the actual night of homecoming. Starting with, Buffy confidently walking out to get into the limo in that orange dress. I have to admit, I didn't love either of the dresses on Buffy or Cordelia, but I understand why they were chosen. They were bright, contrasting colors, making the two of them really stand out in, all these dark, gritty, grubby scenes in the forest and in that cabin, and also made them look similar but different, right? They were both these like solid color satin dresses, but because the colors were different, it made them look like they were opposed to each other. I just thought they were not very fashionable. I don't think Cordelia would have worn that dress in real life. And then Cordelia takes there's two corsages in the car, and
Yeah.
Cordelia's like, I took the orchid, because of course she did, because the orchid is the best flower. And so, and then she's like, it's better for my coloring anyway, or something like that.
Yeah.
And it's just like part and parcel of so many times that Cordelia has said like really mean things to Buffy about her physical appearance, and also that she's like, you like slaying and dirty stuff, so of course you aren't going to care if your hair's a mess or whatever it is. Or as she says in this later episode, when she's like, why do you even care about Homecoming Queen when you do stuff like this? And it's like, Cordy, how can you be so blind to what is going on with Buffy here, that she feels like she wants a normal life? She doesn't want to just be the Slayer, and Buffy has to explain it to her. I do think Cordy gets it by the end of that conversation, when Buffy says, I just wanted some proof that I was chosen for something other than this.
Yeah.
It's like a wash of understanding comes over Cordy's face, and she's like, oh.
Yeah, and it's actually at the very end of the episode, I believe that's how Cordy feels. She understands Buffy's situation, how she's pigeonholed and just being only just the Slayer, and how Cordy herself pigeonholes, Buffy at that. This is where you're at. This is your station. You just do this. You can't do anything else. Well, as we see in the episode, Cordy could actually do something else. She knows how to dispatula people.
She rises to the occasion.
She does.
Pretty remarkably. I love the whole scene in the cabin with the two of them sort of bickering and then working together is hilarious and also very moving. Buffy gives a very heartfelt speech about why she cares about Homecoming Queen, but she's also the Slayer the whole time, right? She immediately is like checking out her environment. She's like, you need a weapon. And she's closing the curtains so that the bad guys can't see inside. And she's ready to defend them. And she's going to defend Cordelia, even though she's angry at her, right? There's no question that Buffy will try to save Cordelia's life in this situation. I just get such a kick out of like Cordelia showing up with the spatula is really funny. And she's like miming what she's going to do with it. That was so good. And then later when Buffy's like, Cor, the gun. And then Cordelia wildly misses shooting. I think it's the yellow spiny headed demon. And then she's like, Cordelia, the spatula. Like, Cordy can't handle a gun. She needs some training, I guess. It's hilarious. I love the scene when the grenade comes in and Buffy grabs Cordelia and they jump out the window, and then the spiny demon tries to jump out a different window and it's boarded up and he just falls back on the floor. I laughed out loud. I was like, because I didn't remember that happened, and it was so funny. Like, he was like, they jumped out a window, I'll jump out a window. Nope, that didn't work out for him.
Yeah, that's Kulak from... What's the name of his clan? I have it here. Miquot clan. I love that character. I love the design of that particular character. It reminds me of, speaking of comic books, I'm a huge Spider-Man fan. So, in, I believe, Amazing Spider-Man issue 236, I believe. Could be wrong. But there's a character called Stegron. Looks like a dinosaur. So it's like a stegosaur. So
with the same kind of
he looks like, but the cool part about Kulak is that he could shoot out his little stegosaurus style blades or
Yeah,
fins.
from his wrists.
Yeah, from his wrists to go into walls, and we see that in the montage. I thought that was pretty cool. And I just love how Mr. Trick, he goes, all right, killers, hunters, pointy-headed things. Just the way he talks about it.
Hey, I have that. Here we go.
Ladies, gentlemen, spiny-headed looking creatures, welcome to Slayerfest 98.
Yeah, the whole interaction between Trick and what's his name again?
Kulak.
Kulak, when he's like, I ain't never seen nothing like that before, but at the same time he's like, you do you. Like he's
Yeah, exactly.
no prejudice. As long as you paid the entry fee, you're fine to come in.
Yeah.
Gorch, who we met in Bad Eggs, used to be part of the Gorch brothers, and Buffy slayed one of the brothers, and now he's married this Candy vampire who is hilarious. They both have the Texas accents, which I really enjoy. And
yeah, I like those characters.
I thought Gorch and Candy's strategy of hanging out at the library, with Buffy's watcher, waiting for her to come there, was brilliant. Right? They lost the opportunity of the quick kill that might have happened in the woods, but they were right. That's where Buffy was going to come, and she did.
Yeah.
And it was only, first of all, Buffy staking Candy with the spatula, which was so funny. And then Cordelia's amazing ability to just scare Gorch into leaving with her just the power of her confidence and her words. And it's a testament to Charisma Carpenter, how well that was delivered, and not over the top, not too much, just the right amount of spin she put on that. It was a beautiful moment and, really earned Buffy's respect. She says later, don't mess with Cordelia. And then hilariously, Xander's like, no. So, he's appropriately terrified of his own girlfriend, and he should be, because Cordelia is a force of nature who he doesn't deserve.
Yeah, it's a credit to David Greenwalt, who actually wrote it, and I believe he was probably responsible for all that dialogue that Charisma Carpenter had to do. And I really did enjoy that scene entirely with how she talks to Gorch. It's like, wow, she's just standing up to him. And meanwhile, it's just like in the very beginning, it's like, hello, I'm a homecoming queen. She's the Slayer.
Yeah. Cordy would have made a great Slayer. She's smart, she's confident, she's resourceful, she's tough.
Yeah.
But she doesn't need superpowers to be a badass. She is a badass on her own.
Yeah,
in her
that
own
is
right.
true. Yeah.
She's
but we
amazing.
did get a Cordy as a Slayer.
In the new audio play, The Slayers. I haven't finished it yet. I got to listen to the rest of it.
Oh, you haven't? I listened to the whole thing. I listened to it over the course of like 3 days.
I started to, and then we were going to cover it on the podcast, and we probably still will, but like Kara and I couldn't line up our schedules, and we'll figure out maybe at the end of season 3 when we take a break between seasons. That would be a good time to cover it.
That would be great. And gives people the time to catch up too, because they could listen to it and then hear you guys take on it.
Yeah, that would be fantastic. Let's see. So where were we?
Slayerfest.
Slayerfest.
Yeah, literally, it's like we got the Evil Dead cabin that Cordy and Buffy have to be held up into. They have to deal with Kulak. Buffy does eventually deal with the one human bounty hunter style guy, and he gets stuck in the bear trap.
I know, that was awesome. His own trap.
Yeah, his own trap. She got him in his own trap. Eventually, we get the German assassins, twin brothers.
I kept thinking about the Winklevoss twins from the Facebook movie.
Yes.
I was like, I think that blonde twins will forever be the Winklevoss twins in like all of media now. That's just Yeah.
2 of Army Hammer.
Uh,
That's who played him.
yeah. Uh, just there's stuff about Army Hammer that's come out since then that's a little weird.
Oh, I know. There's a whole documentary.
Yeah, he's an odd guy. But
Yes.
the German assassins, plugged into the computer, the like, really rudimentary computer graphics and their
Yeah.
targeting software, and Buffy's brilliant idea to make them target each other really works. So she still has her record of never having killed a human, even though those 2 humans got killed. I really wonder what the police are going to make of that scene in the high school, but I go back to
The police of Sunnydale are deeply stupid.
it was a brilliant strategy to use the tracking devices against them, but I really didn't understand how it worked, like how she was in that corner, but the guy was pointing in completely the other direction, even though the wheelchair guy was telling him exactly where the trackers were, and then she threw the trackers. Like it only sort of made sense, but it doesn't really matter. It was still a really satisfying way to end the story of those 2 assassin dudes with the AR-15s. And
Yeah.
the show continues its ongoing point that guns are dumb, guns are useless, and Buffy doesn't like guns. She's always trying to eliminate guns from the scene. It's not her weapon of choice. She doesn't train with guns. We never really see, they use the trank gun, but it's just not her choice for vanquishing ever.
No. Everything is either a spike or a sword.
Yeah.
Or an axe.
Or an axe, yeah. Crossbow, yeah.
Yeah.
Buffy was using the crossbow and making it cool long before Daryl Dixon.
That is true. That is true. But there was always the classic wooden style crossbows that you see in Hammer films, like the old vampire films from Hammer Studios.
Crossbows are great, but they are slow to reload, unlike a regular bow. So they have there's a lot of episodes where Buffy shoots a bolt from the crossbow and then drops the crossbow and moves to another weapon because
it's a one and done kind
slow.
of weapon for her at that point. Honestly, from somebody who owns 2 crossbows, I have a recurve and a compound. You don't pick it up. It's not like Daryl Dixon where you could just like pull it, cock it, put an arrow. You can't do that with your hands, people. No, you have to. There's like a whole sling piece that you could do with the hands to get it up, because to pull on those, no. It's not fun.
You need many, whatever it's called, foot-pounds of pressure to pull back the string. Yeah, Daryl's always doing it like one-handed, and I'm like, I don't think that would work.
That does not work.
The reason that crossbows are so effective is that the tension in that string, the pressure is really strong, so the bolts are way faster than a regular bow and arrow. And so they can pierce through hide or whatever more easily than a regular bow and arrow. Yeah. Bows and arrows are just more flexible and faster to use.
That is true. Unless you have a hand crossbow, which I have.
Oh, like a little one?
Yes, it looks like a pistol, but they have a cocking mechanism where you could actually cock it really quick and put a small bolt. Now, the bolts are probably about maybe 6 to 8 inches long. And
so not the same.
But they don't have as distance or the amount of distance or pressure or force that a regular standard crossbow would have.
Do you hunt with your crossbows, or do you just
I do it for fun, for target practice. My brother has borrowed my crossbows for hunting, though. He's got land up where he lives, and he during deer season he'll be like, hey, it's in between, because it's an in-between kind of gun and or bow. So you could actually do a cross between both seasons, and he's used it. Never caught a deer with one, obviously, but he's only done that with a gun. But he loves using them.
I mean, they're cool, and they look so much more interesting than a gun. I love that they're quieter.
Yes.
I think lately my tolerance for like gun noise in my entertainment has gone way down. I I just can't listen to a lot of gunfire. I have to like mute the TV or something if there's a lot of gunfire in a scene. And I really appreciate the relative quiet of things like a crossbow or Buffy's stakes. That I don't have
Yeah,
to hear all that like bang, 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 bang all the time.
I'm a gun owner, so but the thing is I don't like using guns, and I don't like guns. The only reason why I kept them, I didn't buy them. They were my father's service revolvers when he was a police
Mm,
officer. But I've gone and I know how to shoot, and I know how to shoot rifles. I have pistols. I've got shotgun. But the thing is that it's just so loud.
yeah,
My
it's
ears are
really
sensitive
loud.
as I get older.
Yeah.
I
I
learned
always
as a
think
Boy Scout.
that everybody on The Walking Dead must have massive hearing loss because they're constantly shooting guns in small spaces where there's tons of reverb and
Yes.
echo and the guns are close to their head and they don't always show them reacting to the unbelievably loud noise, but
Yeah.
yeah, I mean when people go to the shooting range they wear ear protection for a reason because they're
Yes.
loud.
Yes, they are. But let's get back to this.
Yeah, Buffy. Let's talk about Buffy.
Let's talk about Buffy. The cabin. I already mentioned it. Looked like
Yeah.
something out of Evil Dead. Just to clarify what Penny was saying earlier when I mentioned it. Drew Goddard was a writer on Buffy for, I believe, one season at one point and became friends with JW. This episode came up. I think he didn't write on it, but he was aware of it, but he was a fan of it. And JW and him were working on something, and they were trying to come up with a concept or an idea for a film. And they did. Literally, Drew goes, "What about that episode of Buffy with Homecoming? That's a great idea. Like a cabin in the woods. What could we do with this and put monsters and whatever?" And goes, and they were trying to come up with the idea, and they came up with the movie Cabin in the Woods. They locked themselves in a hotel, and they were side by side and back to back, and they were coming up with ideas of, because he knew in Buffy they had assassins, but they made them all monsters in Cabin in the Woods. So that's where this show kind of influenced Cabin in the Woods. Drew Goddard was just a fan of it, and then it spawned both of their interests of making all these different monsters for that particular movie. They talked about werewolves, mermen, not
Yeah.
mermaids, and then all these other things, and then of not, this is politically incorrect for me to say, but redneck zombie
Mhm.
family, so that they had in that particular movie itself. And then the fact is that this is like some sort of, instead of the kids being hunted, but in this case, it's just Buffy, and it was supposed to be Faith with Buffy.
Right.
So they were trying to corner both Slayers at the same time. And then the Scooby Gang decided, oh, these two need to get together, and we have to get them alone. So we got you the limo.
It
And
wasn't
then
cheap, so work it out. I thought,
exactly.
if it wasn't the Hellmouth and, things didn't always go wrong, that's a really good strategy if you have two friends who are fighting, is to sort of lock them in a room for a little bit and force them to talk to each other because I mean they did work it out by the end. When they both
Yeah.
didn't win Homecoming Queen, they looked at each other and walked out together.
Yeah.
It They solved the rift. Now, what isn't solved is the growing rift that's going to be caused by Xander and Willow suddenly getting the hots for each other. More to come on that later. It's not my favorite subplot of the Buffy series, but I 100% understand how Willow, who always felt unattractive, unpopular, unliked by boys, awkward, and had a huge crush on Xander for years and years, would
Hmm.
fall into this trap.
Yeah.
Xander, on the other hand, is just he's just being like the worst version of high school age dude who's
It's
like,
a
pretty girl,
typical.
I kiss. Like, ugh.
I got attention. She liked me.
Yeah,
It's
that was
kind of like
fun.
the caveman thing, and then he's obsessing on it. But they both seem guilty or have that guilty conscience look on them at the homecoming dance.
Yeah. Oh,
At
they
that
were
point,
miserable at the homecoming dance.
they were miserable about it. But it's typical. The only thing that I liked about this particular episode about Xander is that he wasn't necessarily objectifying any woman directly.
That's true.
So normally that's my whole issue with the Xander character throughout the whole series, because there's moments in the show where he's objectifying women, whether it be Buffy, Cordy, Willow, Tara later on, and I'm
Mhm.
talking about other characters, everybody. He got to that point. They wound up phasing that out a little bit, but it's always him objectifying women, and then he does the right thing in helping, or comes with a comical solution for something, and proves that he's worthwhile. They never made the character fully well rounded. I always felt it's like I love the character, but I love to hate certain aspects like him with this whole objectifying women.
Yeah, I
Uh,
think if there were a reboot of the show, the Xander character would be taken in a very different direction.
oh,
I
definitely.
all some of the things he says to the women in his life just would not fly in 2024. And in the comics, I think they may at least, well, okay, there's like 19 different Buffy comic stories, but
Yeah,
one
yeah.
of the
There's
ones I've been reading, he is the one who is gay instead of Willow, which was originally was being considered. They were like, we're going to turn one of these characters gay. Which one will it be? And
Yeah, they
they
kind of they alluded to that in the very beginning with what's his name that was beating up on him,
Larry, yeah.
Larry, because they were gonna make that, and then they kind of did a twist and made him, which I hate when they do that. Certain
Yeah.
characters like making Xander a little bit homophobic
Yeah,
at one
he's
point.
really homophobic.
So
Uh, it's frustrating for me.
it is. There's also a tie-in too. Now, if you look at this episode, and I already mentioned it, that it looked like the Evil Dead cabin.
Mhm.
Around this time, there were rumors, and it was a rumor that because at the time I was going to conventions, you would go to Fangoria horror conventions in Manhattan, go to Jersey Chiller Theater, Monster Mania, things of that nature. There was a rumor going around, and some of the cast would do these conventions. There was a rumor going around that since Nicholas Brendan looks a lot like Bruce Campbell,
Mhm.
and there was rumors that a new Evil Dead was coming about, and Nicholas would have been portrayed because he looks a lot like Bruce Campbell.
Oh.
So, and then this episode came up, and everybody was just like, "Wow, oh yeah, that'll work." And then he goes, "I think he said it on a panel where he goes, that's wishful thinking. I would love that, but it's not. It
Yeah.
wasn't
There's
happening. It was
yeah,
all
there's
rumors.
nothing happening. There's nothing in the works.
Yeah, but I could see it though. What? Yeah, with Xander and Willow kissing, that was a pivotal moment for them because it this leads on to something later on that it hurts something in the end. But the fact that it was something that was going to happen anyway. I always thought between these
Yeah.
two characters over the course of the past 2 seasons, the first 2 seasons. And you would always think they're going to wind up putting these two together at one point, or something's going to happen, even though they've been best friends since they were in kindergarten or something. And then, throw Buffy in the mix. But there's we get some of that tension in there. And then we
Yeah.
find out at the very end, at the end of this episode, I'm forgetting who won Homecoming. She wasn't
Not
very important to me.
it wasn't either Cordy or Buffy. It was the other two people who were campaigning for it, and they had a tie.
Ah.
That's why Cordy and Buffy looked at each other in disgust and walked out together, because they were like, this whole thing was a waste of effort. And and those two
Yeah.
girls are below us. Like they clearly did not think that those other two girls were worthy of winning. It led to a cute moment where Devin was holding the tiara above their heads and like going back and forth with it because he didn't know what to do
Oh,
when there
that's
were two
right.
homecoming queens. It was real cute.
I love the fact that we get Faith at the homecoming dance too, and she
Yeah.
shows up between them, and she sees Scott, and he's there with a date, and she goes, "What a sleaze bag!"
Oh, and
But then
then she has this
Giles,
great moment. Wait, I have the sound. Here we go.
Scott? There you are, honey. Hey, good news. Doctor says that the itching and the swelling and the burning should clear up, but we gotta keep using the ointment. Hi.
It's so Faith to do that, and
Yeah.
and she's looking out for Buffy. Buffy would never in a million years try to like sabotage Scott's happiness, right? She's a class act, but Faith is like, I'm gonna slay this guy in a different way, which I loved. I love whenever a friend has their friend's back in that way, like, and does the thing for the friend that the friend can't do themselves. It's awesome, and it was funny. And Scott had it come in a little bit, not really, I think.
Yeah.
I also was thinking, like, not for nothing, Scott's two best friends died a week ago. Like, this poor guy is going through some stuff, and he broke up with Buffy for actually really good reason. And I feel like we never see Scott again after this episode. That's the end of Scott. I get a feeling he's changed schools. He was like,
I need to get away from this. Well, that's good for his benefit too, considering
Yeah.
later on in years.
yeah, Sunnydale's not the safest place to be, regardless. But you also don't want to be the enemy of the Slayer and her friends.
Yeah, that is true. I love that Giles actually does come up behind there and jokes about something is wrong because Buffy isn't there. It's like something's happened to Buffy. Oh, he goes, "Oh, I'll go back to my library." After that,
And Xander and Willow barely react to him because they're both just so busy being miserable about having kissed and not knowing what to do about it. And also the fact that Oz is on stage and Cordelia's with Buffy, so the two of them are standing there alone without their dates to distract them from thinking about each other and what happened. It's pretty funny.
Yeah.
Willow's dress, I will say, was gorgeous. That was a really, really beautiful dress.
I thought I think that when they dressed up Charisma Carpenter and Sarah Michelle Gellar the way they did, they probably were doing that to be a little bit more over the top because it is a homecoming thing and to make them stand out, like you were saying before. It's like, hey, let's put day glow on them because like having wearing orange when you go hunting.
Yeah, it's the worst possible color to be wearing if you're being hunted in the woods.
Yeah.
This is also the second time that Buffy says it's a long story and the other person just sums it up in 2 words. Like the last time was with Oz and she's like, "Oh, it's a long story," and he's like, "Got bit." And Buffy's like, "Oh, apparently not." And then this time Cordelia's like, "Got hunted." And then Buffy's like, "I guess it wasn't that long of a story." It's I don't remember that being a thing through the whole series, but now I'm going to be on the lookout for it because it's a funny little running joke.
Probably. It's just like, all right, don't have to be so convoluted. Here you go.
Giles gets hit on the head again and knocked unconscious. We should start a Giles concussion watch.
Yeah, or that could be a drinking game.
Hey, it's time for some trivia. Mark, why don't you start us off?
All right, first piece of trivia. Chad Stahelski, I should say, who played Kulak, the yellow demon with the dinosaur-like head, ridges, was more often employed as a stunt performer or coordinator. One of his first jobs had been to double Brandon Lee's character in The Crow after the actor was tragically killed in an on-set accident during filming. Later in his career, Stahelski turned to directing, helming the movies in action-heavy John Wick franchise. That's why his name sounds familiar, because I covered those movies.
Yeah. I thought that was really interesting. A stunt performer turned director, and
Yeah.
also perfect for the John Wick movies to have somebody who's so intimately familiar with doing stunts and coordinating stunts, because those movies are extremely stunt heavy.
Yeah, they are. And yeah, and it was during the 90s too that the Crow happened, and we lost Brandon Lee too.
Yeah, that was
So
so
that was before this.
sad.
This was like 94 the Crow came out.
Yeah, mid
30
90s.
years later, we're talking about the Crow.
Yeah. Buffy's list of Cordelia's strengths on her big board reads: popular with boys, makes friends easily, has money to buy votes, expensive clothes, perfect teeth. Her list of weaknesses reads: manipulative, two-faced, bad in sports, superficial, no sense of humor, fake smile, Bree, and Xander. In Dead Man's Party, both Cordelia and Xander express a dislike for Brie cheese, so that's why Brie was on the list. Having Xander on the list of weaknesses written down in plain sight in front of Xander is hilarious.
Yeah, like he's probably oblivious to it anyway.
I mean, he's a liability because everyone thinks he's a dork and they don't understand why Cordelia is with him.
Yeah. Next up, this is the final Buffy script to be written by David Greenwald, as he shifted his attention to preparing Angel in 1999 for the following season.
The beige van spy guys are watching Buffy through binoculars that are jacked into a monitor, the image sent by phone modem to a remote monitor. At the time this episode was made, this stuff was sci-fi advanced tech. The very first ever consumer product digital camera had been introduced just 4 years earlier, the same time as the first smartphone. We talked about this a little bit, and also Enemy of the State and all the surveillance tech in that movie. That was really cool.
Yep.
So, Mark, we are at the part of the episode where I ask the pivotal question.
Mm-hmm.
Does it still slay?
For me, it does. Like I said, I've watched this numerous times. I used to do Buffy watches every year because I had the season, so I would watch it all the way through at least once a year. But this was an episode that I could actually watch again and again on occasion, just for the fact of it's Slayerfest. And then we got Cordelia also kicking ass in it.
Yeah, it really is a showcase
Slayer.
for Cordelia's character and Charisma Carpenter's acting.
Yeah.
And I'm glad we got that at this point in the season. It makes what's coming up so much more poignant that we have had a chance to come to like Cordelia a little bit more at this point. It's great. So, no big surprise. I also think it still slays. I have a soft spot in my heart for the heavy episodes that deal with really serious societal ills, but I also love these lighter episodes that give us a chance to hang out with the characters when they're able to be a little bit funny, that's a little more action heavy. It's a lot of fun, and it holds up really, really well. So yeah, still slays. Let's find out what our listeners have to say and take a walk over to the Bronze, order ourselves a blooming onion and a couple of illegal underage beers, and listen to what they think of the episode.
Bronze things of bronze.
Why don't you read the first one?
We got one from Alan, and he says, "Oh wow, you were going back into Buffy. This might inspire me to finally go back and see all the episodes I never got to. I have only seen about a dozen and none at all from Angel, which a lot of fans say is even better." And
I don't know if I'd say even better, but
yeah.
It's
I would
different.
say different.
It's different. It's also good, especially after season one. Season one's a little uneven, but then it gets really interesting after season one.
Yeah, I still have to get back into Angel. I kind of dropped off. I'm not saying I watched it, but I'm not a huge fan of it. I preferred Buffy over Angel, but I kind of lost track of it after a while. But there was like, and keep in mind too, there's a lot of crossover events that
Yeah.
happen. There's a couple of them, and in spoilers, I'll talk about it later.
Kelly writes in, and Kelly will be guesting on this podcast in a couple of weeks when we cover the episode Revelations. This was a fun episode with Cordelia getting a little more focused than usual. It's also interesting watching the dynamic change between Willow and Xander. Not really a fan of it because Oz, and she's got like a shrug and crying emoji, but something that probably needed to be explored a bit regardless. And I agree. It did need to be explored, and I'm also
Yeah.
not a fan of it. Yeah.
Yeah, that is true. Next one is Jolene, and she says, "I love this episode, except for Willow and Xander." A lot of exclamation points. I hated that happening. It was so out of character for Willow, not Xander. It was totally something Xander would do, according to her. Couldn't ever see her betraying anyone, especially Oz. Obviously, the betrayal is needed for the future episode. Quote unquote spoiler, sorry. But you didn't really give anything away at that point.
Yeah.
But she goes, but just no. Anyway, I love Cordelia in this one. She's so funny, but we really get to see her vulnerable side too, which makes that, what Xander and Willow do even worse. Crying emoji. The ending is brilliant too. The first time I watched it and they said it was a tie, I remember thinking, oh, how cheesy is this? Surely they won't make them both win. Laughing emoji, laughing emoji. The looks of disgust on their faces are excellent. I agree with that. I also have to mention the one line that is just perfectly Oz. As Willow goes, so goes my nation. That's the quote I couldn't get before, but thank you, Jolene.
Fantastic. Thanks, Jolene. I was listening to your namesake song earlier, Jolene, when I was getting ready to podcast.
Awesome.
Becky writes in and says, "Hello all. I know I said it last week, but I will say it again. I love this episode. Let's dive into my thoughts and beware, there are many. LOL. I would expect nothing less from you, Becky. I was so proud of Buffy when she went to take Angel, quote, food, unquote, and she made a point to tell him she was moving on and had even met someone else. It did break my heart, though, when he turned around quickly and she flinched. Definitely some trauma there with how abusive he was with her as Angelus. LOL at her finally being excited about a new boy and he breaks up with her right after asking her to the dance. Reminds me of my prom date. He was a jerk. Well, Becky, then we don't like that guy either.
Yeah.
Mayor time. This season is about to get even better when he shows up. Harry Grainer was perfect for this role. The way he is so cheerful and calm, even when threatening one of his employees, is perfection. He commands respect and never even has to raise his voice. I look forward to his storyline amping up and future episodes where he acts closely with Eliza. Their chemistry together is amazing. Mr. Trick talking with all the hunters was so funny. He steals every scene he's in. My one minor annoyance with this episode is the Willow-Xander situation. I know these two being together is important for character development and part of a much bigger storyline to come, but it doesn't make sense to me, at least not from Willow. I see Xander being attracted to Willow and kissing her, even though he's with Cordy. I mean, it's Xander. But Willow, I know she had a crush on Xander before Oz, but she seems so into Oz that it doesn't make sense to me she would risk that relationship for Xander. Also, Willow looked beautiful in that second dress. I liked the second dress, but I thought the third dress was gorgeous. I liked how they switched back and forth between Buffy and Cordy battling it out for votes and the hunters practicing for the battle to catch the Slayers. Yeah, I love that too. Whoever's idea it was to put Cordelia and Buffy together in this limo, I thank you. That was some of the best Buffy TV ever. And I love how everything that followed gave us a stronger side of Cordelia. Once again, charisma nails it. I laughed aloud when she grabbed the spatula as a weapon and ended up killing a vampire with it towards the end. The way she stood up to Lyle and scared him off was priceless. It was Buffy that kills with the spatula, but yeah, I was psyched when that happened. The moment between the two in the cabin when fighting about why Buffy wanted to be queen was great. It's obvious Buffy sees in Cordy all that she had before having to become a Slayer, which makes sense why there is so much hostility between the two. Buffy's words, proof I was chosen for something other than this, spoke volumes and seemed to help Cordy better understand Buffy's world, as well as reminding the audience that yes, she is a badass, but she's also a teenage girl who wants to be able to enjoy that. Flip phones and a dial-up internet. I miss the 90s so much. Loved Willow in the light purple sweater at the beginning of the episode. Yeah, Willow's outfits in this episode were entirely inoffensive. Buffy wearing body glitter. Remember how popular that used to be? Oh my God, yes. Yeah, body glitter. Giles was looking good in that suit, and how cute was his excitement over finger sandwiches. Also referring to the announcement of Queen as a coronation. Yeah, very British. LOL at Buffy breaking out the whiteboard to discuss the candidates. Way to go, Faith, messing up Scott's date. That was funny. Cordelia grabbing the spatula and not thinking the phone there might be useful. Jonathan citing, heart, those cupcakes look delicious. Those cupcakes were hilarious. When that one couple was eating them and they just had chocolate smeared all over their faces.
Yeah.
That was awesome. Funny, neither of them won, and I love how they just turned and walked out. Favorite quotes. Cordy after the video plays announcing Slayerfest. Hello, are you people stupid? She's a Slayer, and I'm a homecoming queen. Written on the note in the limo. Limo was not cheap, work it out. When Cordy is beating the demon with the spatula and Buffy yells, Cordelia, the gun. Cordelia shoots and her aim is bad. Cordelia, the spatula! When Xander sees the two of them walk into the dance disheveled, oh God, what did you two do to each other? Still remains one of my favorite episodes, so I say it still slays. Thanks for bearing with all the notes. Happy face emoji. Have a great weekend, grr, arg. Thanks, Becky.
Thanks.
I love your long emails or feedback posts. It's delightful, and sometimes you notice things that I didn't notice, and that is always helpful. We got a couple of voicemails, so let me play. We'll do Steve first.
Hello, still slaying. This is Steve, and this is going to be for Homecoming. Cordelia just speaks her mind, and we're going to find out in the future. I don't want to spoil anything. We're going to find out that Cordelia speaks her mind. Oh, I didn't rewatch Beauty and the Beast, so I didn't realize that this is the episode where they figure out that Angel's back, not the last one. Well, I forgot Scott breaking up with her. That's not right. Trick just said nubile. What is it with the word nubile that this series seems to like? Oh, that's right. Joss Whedon. And we meet the mayor for the first time, I think, right? I love Willow's picture because she's waiting, and then she makes this weird face. And then, of course, Oz's picture is just him, just sitting there, straight-faced. Oh, how sad. Her favorite teacher doesn't even remember her. Oh yeah, this scene with Xander and Willow getting ready for the homecoming party. I remember what happens now. Yeah, I don't think taking track of notes in your notebook of voters is going to help, Buffy. Sorry. Aw, Jonathan, is this the first time we've actually got his name? Danny Strong is so good. Oh, going to the single parent route, Cordelia? Nah. Xander, you are the worst. Your hormones are just all over the place. So Cordelia and Buffy are in the limo together. Work it out. So if Cordelia took the orchid corsage, what was the other corsage? Oh, and of course, Mr. Trick thought that Faith and Buffy were going to be together in the limo. Oh, Liza Dushku looks good in that dress. Faith is great, stepping in to help Buffy out. Buffy's very positive about how this is going to turn out. It's working on Cordelia. Where's a damn weapon? Oh, answering machines. Wow, that's a callback. No, Cordelia, not the gun, the spatula. She Kool-Aid Man's out with Cordelia, but the other demon, the yellow skin guy with the knives, can't do it. And of course, Lyle Gorge's girlfriend are in the library. Oh, apparently, the spatula handle was wood, and it just took out candy. And Lyle Gorge just leaves after Cordelia's rant. And the Germans take out each other. Got hunted. Apparently not that long of a story. And the homecoming queen winners are a tie, not Buffy and Cordelia. That's the end.
Thank you, Steve. I loved live Steving. And the fact that he's live Steving for a show that's 25 years old is just really great.
Yeah, it's always fun to hear him.
It's good stuff. And then we have another voicemail from Sam.
Hi, it's Sam. Homecoming episode. I remember homecomings, and I really liked this episode when it first came out. I watched it live when I was 14. I have been a Buffy fan since it first came out live, and maybe 12, 13-year-old me shouldn't have been watching it, but I remember I kind of developed with Buffy being a few years older than me on the show, and it's just so fun to go back and revisit the times, and I really appreciate what you guys are doing on the podcast of talking about the current events of that time and the media of that time, and it's just very nostalgic for me. And also I'm like checking in on my memories of like, do I remember this? And that's so interesting that was going on. So it provides historical context for the episode, as well as having me go down memory lane of what I was listening to or watching or exposed to. So I just really appreciate it. And the fashion, oh my goodness. I loved Buffy fashion when I was watching the show. I aspired to it. And I'm watching it now and I'm like, oh, I would love those outfits. The 90s are back in the pop culture stratosphere, and the fashion and everything and the makeup, and it's just phenomenal. And I love Cordelia. I find myself becoming really, her character is really endearing to me this watch around, and that's new for me. So I mean, when I was in high school, I was an outcast, a misfit. So I couldn't really relate to Cordelia the first time around watching the show, or really that much afterwards. And watching the show as an adult and with the podcast, I just really appreciate Charisma Carpenter's work. And she's so funny. And the end of this episode is just so great because it solidifies what we've all known about Cordelia. She's just as much of an outcast and a misfit as the rest of the Scooby Gang, and she fits right in with them, whether she likes it or not. And we even have Harmony as like a foil, with her. And so I really appreciated the ending of the show, and the caricatures that were the Slayerfest bad guys are understandable given the time. And the quicker this Willow Xander storyline comes and goes, the better. I cannot stop thinking about Xander being a foil, being an avatar for JW, and just it's icky and weird. He's so attracted to Willow. I don't know. Like, I know that's not what it's supposed to be, but still. Also, we know JW's personal life. He cheated, allegedly, on his wife. So the more the storyline speeds through, the better for me.
Awesome, Sam. Thank you so much. Sam is also going to be guest hosting on a future episode, and I think Steve will be as well. We haven't nailed that down. And that'll be in the second half of season 3. So you guys will get to hear those voices some more.
Awesome.
So that brings us to the end of the main section of the podcast.
Stay tuned for the Watcher's Diaries if you want to hear the spoilery discussion.
And if you'd like to join the conversation, you can find all our contact information at podcastica.com. It's also in the show notes with every episode, by the way. You can also find us on Facebook at facebook.com/podcastica. There's also a Still Slaying Facebook page if you want to join that, where we post, any information. And we have an Instagram page at StillSlayingCast, and you can also email us at stillslayingfeedback@gmail.com. If you want to send in a voice message, the most effective way to do that is record it on your phone with a voice memo app and then attach it to an email and send it in. The functionality on the podcastica.com website sometimes cuts people off before they're done talking.
Also at podcastica.com, you'll find this information and links to our social media media pages and all the other shows, such as, I finished up Monarch with Ben Beck for Podcastica and Willhelm, which was a cross-platform podcast. But you could also hear the trivia with Yellow Jackets WTF that you guys did not too long ago.
Yeah,
right?
That's the most recent Yellow Jackets episode. And we're probably going to also cover the new movie about the Andes plane crash disaster with the rugby team.
Okay,
We covered
the
Alive
remake of
previously.
Yeah.
But there's Society of Snow that has won a bunch of awards, is really critically highly acclaimed. So
Really good.
We're going to reconvene to cover that. And, there's so many shows at Podcastica. If you can't find one that you like, you're not looking hard enough. There's, I really enjoy going into some of the back catalog and listening to, especially I binged all of the Mike Flanagan TV series is on Netflix recently, and I'm making my way through the Strange Indeed coverage of all of those, and it's been really fun. Although it's funny, I keep wanting to send in feedback, and I'm like, oh, that's in the past. But it's been great. Mark, what's going on over on Panels to Pixels or Adrenaline Cinema Podcast? What are you looking forward to over there?
Well, we're looking forward to, we're going to be finishing up our coverage of What If. Yes, we're a little bit late, people, but we like to take our time. So we're going to be finishing up What If. We're going to move on. We're going to just do a full single episode podcast about Echo and how that was done for its own season and what we project what's going to happen with Marvel after that. The cross-platform, which is not really much of a cross-platform for Adrenaline Cinema Podcast and Panels to Pixels, because literally, me. But we're doing the Losers that came out years ago. Yeah, it has Jeffrey Dean Morgan, Chris Evans, Zoe Saldana. So a lot of Marvel cast is that's actually in it. But it was a comic book movie turned to action movie. Think of the A-Team. So we already recorded it, but if you want to send in feedback, you're more than welcome to. Literally, if you want to find me, just go to PyroCoreEntertainment.com. There will be links there for Adrenaline Cinema, everybody else it's on the network there. And then, obviously, just look for Panels to Pixels podcast in any podcast player of choice, and then you'll find me.
That is fantastic.
And if you like what we do, hit like, follow, and subscribe.
Next time on this podcast, we'll be covering Season 3, Episode 6, Band Candy, one of my personal all-time favorites.
That's a good one. Yeah.
That's a delightful episode. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah.
So thanks, everyone. And remember, if you get me mad, what do you think I'll do to you?
All right. Later, everybody.
Okay, that's the end of the non-spoiler section. If you want to avoid spoilers, now's the time to stop listening.
It's too bad we can't sneak a look at the Watcher Diaries. I'm sure it's full of fun facts to know and tell.
Yeah, that's too bad. That stuff is private.
Also, Giles keeps them in his office, in his personal files.
Most importantly, it would be wrong.
That's plenty of warning. We can talk spoilers now. Let's talk about Xander and Willow and where this is going to go. I think they had to find a way to break up Xander and Cordelia. At this point, they had already decided Cordy was going to join Angel on the Angel series. And so they needed Cordy and Xander to break up. And they also wanted to make sure that we loved Cordy and that the breakup was not her fault. So, they have her saying that she thinks she might be in love with Xander, that it might be the real thing. And, showing that vulnerability in the moment in the cabin is purposeful to let us know that when she finds out about Xander and Willow making out, that her hurt is deep and unrepairable.
Yeah,
he breaks her heart.
He does truly break her heart, which is it sucks. Well, it's Xander being Xander. But on top of that, the way she treated him throughout it was during the relationship, and you look at it, and it's just kids being kids at that time because of her status in high school and how she feels about herself and her image, because she was one of the popular girls. She was like, I hate saying it, mean girls that are out there, because she is the description of it. Look at that with Harmony and the rest of the crew that she had. And then the way she treated Xander at times, afterwards, it was like understanding, acceptable. She was accepting of him. But the way she describes him about when Buffy goes, "Wait, you love him?" And she goes, "Yeah, sure." And when they finally had that little discussion, and she goes, "Yeah, he kind of grows on you like a chia pet." But it is disturbing. But I could see how it was kind of like a quick relationship for Xander.
Yeah.
And we do see this, and it does affect her and Oz later on too, with Willow and Oz.
Yeah.
But
And differently, very differently.
Yeah.
Cordy is like, you hurt
devastated
me in a way that I've never been hurt before, and I don't want anything to do with you. And Oz takes it a little bit more in stride. He handles it in a way that I personally have tried to model my own behavior on at times. When I'm very hurt by someone, I've tried to be like Oz and say, I need to take a step away and you need to let me have some space to think, because you hurt me. And right now my emotions are strong and I don't want to say anything until I've had time to process it. And I got that from Oz. Thanks, Oz. That's helpful.
Yeah.
It's a really good way to approach something like this. Of course, Willow can't stand it and she keeps trying to get him to talk to her. And I've definitely had that situation with somebody that I was in a fight with, where I've been like, I need space. And they're like, let's handle it right now. That's like a fundamental difference in personalities sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
But
which clashes.
Oz held his ground, and he did find a way to forgive Willow, and they do stay together for, into season 4, and their relationship deepens and becomes really beautiful as a result. And I just admire Oz so much for how he handles it.
Yeah, and it's so odd too because of this situation and what happens to Willow and Oz at the end of their relationship.
Yeah.
So it's very similar, but
there's a symmetry to it.
Yeah. And then obviously when he comes back after all that and dealing with, being a werewolf, and then we have Tara involved. Spoilers, everybody. So this is all spoilery. I could get to say it.
Yeah, spoil all you want. Yeah. Yeah, I love that episode when he comes back and the only thing that he can't control himself, his werewolf side, about is Willow. And
yeah,
it's so painful, but also beautiful to watch. And when he left the show, I was like, maybe he'll join Angel. Like I wasn't ready to say goodbye to the character of Oz when he leaves the show. I really wanted him to come back.
Yeah, it was a character that I really did enjoy, and I was hoping to see more of him. And you would think, for the fact that they do have, they have the Angel show, that he could cross over there with Charisma Carpenter and be on his side and hang out in LA. But that didn't happen, and it kind of sucks. Especially, at the very end, too. You would think at the very end of the show, towards the last season, he would be perfect for a battle.
Yeah.
And they didn't even bring him back for the final season, like for helping out, because they already look at that. They brought back Face. They brought back a bunch of people.
They brought back a lot of people in season 7 of Buffy. And I have a feeling Seth Green was like, yeah, I'm ready to be done with episodic TV. And, his movie career was going really well at this time. Remember that he was in all those Austin Powers movies.
Oh, that's right.
And I think he also wanted to do his own thing. He started Robot Chicken around that time as well, and that really took off. And I think he was setting up his life to live his life in a way that he liked. I know that creating episodic TV, especially back then when it was 22 episodes in a season, and that it was a grind, that create, like, you worked all the time, really long hours. It was hard work, and it's not for everyone. And I think he wanted to leave the show. It's just a bummer for us who are fans of Oz.
Well, he's been a child actor too, so
Yeah,
he'd been around the course of Hollywood for years. So he needs to spotlight on his own, and he also has done that too. Like he did a movie not too long ago with Macaulay Culkin, and I think it had Breckin Meyer in it too. But it was Seth Green and his wife did a movie together. I forget the name of the movie. I'd seen it.
oh, I'll look it up.
Wasn't bad, and it was independent. It was in an independent film, so that's why I had to watch it because it also had Macaulay Culkin. I was like, wow, this is awesome.
Yeah.
Uh, but it was very cool, and you could tell that he grew up in Hollywood, and sometimes you need your space or you want to be expressive as well. That's why he did Robot Chicken. He wanted to be and have that, and he had all his friends there. He had people in Robot Chicken that he used quite often, which were really
Yeah.
cool.
I think working on Robot Chicken must be a blast. It's like a who's who of cool people in Hollywood, and they get together and play with toys. I mean, it just seems amazing.
Yeah.
And I think, he was a child actor. He's been in the industry basically his whole life, and he got tired of the grind, and I can't blame him. I did the same thing with lawyering. I got tired of the grind and I started doing different things. And I'm sure that there are people who were like, "Oh, it's too bad Penny doesn't want a lawyer anymore." But like, I'm much happier doing what I'm doing, even though I make basically no money. I can only hope that something in my life will be a Robot Chicken and take off and be something I love doing and makes money, but we'll see.
Yeah, that's
never know.
that's everybody. Like we were talking before we started recording, we were talking about podcasting, and that is also a way of making money at times and stuff like that. But to me, I always love the idea, and I just do this because it's a fun hobby. Everybody,
Yeah.
I don't make any money off of what I do. I just have fun with it, and I love it. And I love it for the fact is, it's literally just me having fun, having cool conversations with my friends about stuff that we like. Usually,
Yeah.
it's movies and TV shows and pop culture stuff. That's the whole point of it, and
And
it's
the
a way to get together.
community that we are a part of, this podcasting community, has been a wonderful landing place for me when I left my professional community and during the pandemic when everybody was so isolated. Finding this Podcastica community and joining it and becoming a part of it and getting to be friends with people has been very important to me. So
Yeah.
I don't plan to stop podcasting anytime soon.
Yeah, for those of you are not subscribed, please go to patreon.com/Jason Kabassi. You
Join
too
us.
could, join us. I'm just kidding. But you could actually be part of it. And obviously the Patreon is how like Penny and I know each other. We have a whole large community, as she had said. We all have fun together. It's like I just love Randy's Welcome to the Apocalypse. I look forward to listening more of it.
Oh God, that is so fun. I love it. I was on an episode and it was so much fun. I'm dying to do it again.
Oh man, I look forward to it. But to go back to what I was saying earlier, where we discussed a little bit of Freaks and Geeks, and remember how I mentioned there was a cast member from Buffy. So
Yeah.
it's Sarah Hagen, and Sarah was in Buffy, and she played Amanda towards the
Oh, that's
end.
right, in season 7.
Correct.
Yeah, she's a
So
a potential slayer.
a potential slayer. So she's actually in there. That's what I was alluding to earlier, everybody. I
That's
thought that
right.
was pretty cool. So I had to quickly look it up, but she's been around a long time, and I just really do enjoy her acting ability too, because she's changed over the years. She's they always make her look like the nerdy, goofy, quirky kind of character, but if you look at her IMDb, it's amazing.
Yeah. That's
Um,
awesome.
I haven't been on haven't been on since, like I said earlier, from like since season 2, and the one thing that I was looking forward to, and spoilery, was Faith. And I just
Yeah.
love the fact that we get Faith. Now, oddly enough, within the same episode, the mayor has something that is kind of fortuitous to his assistant when he says to follow the German assassins. And he goes, you have all my faith.
Yeah.
Meaning that later on in the season, when somebody goes rogue by the name of Faith, who does she ally herself with? The mayor. So, but it's awesome to have Eliza Dushku. She's another child actress that I had seen. I remembered when I saw her on Buffy for the first time, I'm like, wait a minute. That's the daughter of Schwarzenegger from True Lies. And
Commando.
What?
I think she was his daughter in Commando.
No, that was what's her name? Alyssa Milano.
Oh, that was Alyssa Milano. That's right.
No, in True Lies, she plays Schwarzenegger's daughter, the one that puts on the helmet, and he goes, "Oh, you're getting launched out of a rocket." She steals what's his name's money out of his wallet and with the camera. I saw it when I look at her. Then she kind of looks sickly. Eliza Dushku, which is weird. Yeah, she looked like I was like, is this kid sick or something? But she did play with the characters she played it perfectly. And I looked forward to
really talented.
Yeah, she's very talented. She's not acting that much anymore. She went back to college. She's married. She had a child recently. So she graduated. But there were other shows that I had seen her in after Buffy that were really, really good.
Yeah,
another
she had a string of shows she starred in.
JW's Dollhouse was one that I really did enjoy. You had some people in there. We had Garrett Dillahunt in that particular show too, as well.
Pat Oswald too. Yeah.
Yeah, and then True Calling was another one that was an independent, which was really good. I missed that show. It only was on for a couple of seasons, I believe. Yeah. I had the DVDs, but you had Zach Galifianakis in that, Jason Priestley.
And she was on Bull for a while on CBS, and when she left that show, she came out publicly about some of the bad behavior that happened behind the scenes on that set. And
oh wow.
And the repercussions that happened to her because she complained about it. And it was around the same time that Charisma Carpenter came out about some of the bad behavior that was happening on the Buffy set and the Angel set. So the two of them were sort of publicly bonding about it. And I am so proud of these women who are coming forward because they really risk their careers. They get, people who blow the whistle on powerful men often get blackballed in the industry. And so when they have the guts to do it, it just, as a woman, it makes me feel I love them all the more. And I want to support everything that they do.
Yeah, it's really, really good that they're doing that. And it makes me happy that women are standing up for themselves and they're looked at and being heralded for it and instead of condemned now.
Yeah. And there are much more women in positions of power in the industry who are not going to blackball someone who has blown the whistle on someone, right? Like, like a Drew Barrymore or a Reese Witherspoon is going to hire actors who've blown the whistle because that's what they're all about too, is making the industry more healthy. And so,
yeah.
Sister power, I guess. All right. That is the complete end of our show, you guys. Thank you so much for listening, everybody. Until next time, I am Penny.
And I'm Mark. Wait, I'm Spike. No. Keep slaying.